Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this video I'm going to show you how to add a simple riding system in Unity. So we'll be able to ride this robot using the F key. So when I hit the F key, as you can see I'm inside it and I can move as well. Also I can kill the enemy using this robot. And as you can see the text is changed. Press E to exit. So if I hit the E key, I can exit out of the robot. So before we get started, make sure to watch my previous videos about this FPS series. Also make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that bell icon. I appreciate that. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So in this project, I have two FPS controllers. We have this one, which we've created in a previous video. And I can move using the AWST keys. Also I can shoot using the left mouse button. Also, we've created another FPS controller, which is this one. I can disable the FPS controller and enable the new one. So I've used the same scripts, but with a different 3D model, and I can move as well. So if you didn't watch these two videos, go ahead and check them out. So in this video, we are going to add the riding system, and it's going to be very simple. Basically, we'll create a cube, and whenever we trigger it, we are going to display the message, press F to ride the robot. And in order to ride the robot, we will just disable the normal FPS and enable the FPS robot. So by default, let's go ahead and disable the FPS robot and enable the default one. And let's go ahead and add the cube using right click 3D object, and let's use a cube. I'm gonna change the scale a bit, so let's change it to 4 on the X, the Y and the Z. And let's move it a little bit to the top. Then let's go ahead and add the 3D model inside this cube. So I'm gonna drag in this one. So this is free. Let's go ahead and drag in the model under the cube. And I'm gonna change the scale. I think it's a little bit big. And let's move it a bit down as well. Also, I want to hide the mesh renderer, so make sure to uncheck that. We just need the box collider. And because we are going to use this as a trigger, make sure to check is trigger. Also, I want to rotate this cube to this direction. So I'm going to change the Y rotation to -90. And let's change its position a bit. And if we hit play, so we have few errors. And when we go towards the cube, nothing is happening. So first of all, to fix this error, basically we need to change the 3D model. So recently we've added this weapons holder. Make sure to unpack the 3D model using right click, prefab, then unpack completely. And let's remove this weapons holder to make sure that our robot is in the T-pose. Remove the animator component as well. And now we didn't have errors. So we need to create a C# script that is responsible for riding the robot. And to do that, let's go under the scripts folder, right click, create C# script, and let's call it riding system. And let's attach it to our cube. Then I'm going to open it up in Visual Studio. First of all, I'm going to get rid of the start and update methods. And let's add the onTrigger function. So whenever we trigger the cube, we are going to enable the text that displays the message press F to ride the robot. But first of all, we need a reference to the text. So we are going to use Text Mesh Pro. So make sure to use the namespace Text Mesh Pro. Then let's declare the text variable using public Text Mesh Pro UGY, and let's call it riding message. So whenever we trigger the cube, we are going to change the text, but first of all we need to enable it using riding message dot enabled equals true. Then we need to change the text using riding message dot text equals press F to ride the robot. And whenever we exit, we are going to disable the text. So let's create the onTriggerExit function. And under here, we will simply disable the Text Mesh Pro using riding message dot enabled equals false. Let's save the script. So first of all, let's create our Text Mesh Pro under the canvas. Let's right click UI and let's use the Text Mesh Pro. I'm gonna call it riding text as well. And from the inspector, let's change few settings. For example, I want to change the color to blue 1 or maybe a darker color. Then let's add a reference to it under our cube. Make sure to drag in the riding text. So by default we need to disable the text. Make sure to select the riding text and disable the text component. And let's hit play. And if I go towards the robot, as you can see we have the text. Press F to ride the robot. And if we exit, the text disappears. So it's working. Now we just need to add the functionality. So whenever we hit the F key, we need to enable the FPS robot and disable the current FPS controller. And to do that, let's go ahead and open up the riding system script, and we will use the onTriggerStay. So whenever we are inside the cube, we are going to check if we have pressed the F key. In that case, we are going to ride the robot. And in this project, I'm using the input system. So if you didn't watch the video about the new input system, go ahead and check it out. The link is under the video description. So first of all, we need to go up here and use the namespace Unity Engine dot input system. After that, we need to create an input action using input action, and let's call it ride. And in the start method, we need to initialize it using ride equals new input action. The first parameter is the name. I'm going to give it the name ride. Then we need to add a binding, which is the trigger for the action. So in order to ride the robot, we are going to press the F key. So let's add binding, then colon, and let's use keyboard /F. Also, we need to enable the input action using ride dot enable. And then we can go down here and check if ride dot triggered. So whenever we press the F key, we're going to call a function like ride. So let's go ahead and create it down here using void ride. Basically, we need to enable the FPS robot and disable the normal one. So we need to add a reference to it. So let's go up here and add a public game object, and let's call it normal FPS or default FPS as you like. And let's add a reference to the other one using public game object, and I'm gonna call it robot FPS. Then we can go down here under this ride function, and let's disable the normal FPS using normal FPS dot set active false, and enable the robot FPS using robot FPS dot set active true. And also we need to make sure that the robot FPS has the same cube position and orientation. And to do that, let's add robot FPS dot transform dot position equals the cube position, which is under transform dot position. Then robot FPS dot transform dot rotation equals the cube rotation using transform dot rotation. And make sure to call the ride function under this if statement. Let's save the script and go back into Unity. So first of all, we need to add a reference to the FPS controllers. So make sure to drag in the normal FPS and the robot FPS as well. And let's hit play. Then if we go towards the robot and hit the F key, as you can see, I'm inside it, but the position is not the same. So in order to fix that, we need to make sure to change the position before enabling the robot. I'm gonna cut these lines of code. I don't know why it doesn't work. Make sure to change the position and rotation before enabling the robot FPS. So let's paste it up here. Also, whenever we ride the robot, we need to make sure to remove the cube. And to do that, let's go down here and use transform dot game object dot set active false, and that's going to disable the cube and the 3D model as well. Now we need to be able to exit out of the robot, and the easiest way is to create another script and attach it to our FPS robot. In that script, we are going to check if we have pressed the E key. In such case, we are going to exit out of our robot. So to do that, let's go under the scripts folder, and I'm gonna create another script using right click create C# script, and let's call it FPS robot. Then let's attach it to our FPS robot. So whenever we are inside the robot, we are going to change the text to press E to exit, and we need to check if we have pressed the E key to exit. So to do that, let's open up the FPS robot script, So first of all, we need to change the text. So let's add a reference to it using public, and we need to add the text mesh pro namespace using text mesh pro. Then let's create a reference to the text, and under the start method, let's change the text using writing message dot text equals press E to exit. Also make sure to enable it before we change the text using writing message dot enabled equals true. And under the update method, we are going to check if we have pressed the E key. So let's use the new input system using Unity engine dot input system, and let's add an input action using input action, and let's initialize it in the start method using exit equals new input action. So I'm gonna call it exit as well, and let's add the binding, which is the E key. Then we need to enable it using exit dot enable, and then under the update method, let's check if exit dot triggered. In that case, let's call an exit robot function, and let's create it down here using void exit robot. And under this function, we are going to use the opposite of this one. So I'm gonna copy all of these lines of code, and let's paste them down here. So in order to exit, we need to change the normal FPS position to our current position using normal FPS dot transform dot position equals the transform position. Also, we need to change the normal FPS rotation as well. Then we need to enable the normal FPS using normal FPS dot set active true, and disable the robot FPS. And because the script is attached to our robot, we can use game object dot set active false. And finally, we need to enable our cube again, and let's call it cube dot set active true. Now let's add a reference to the normal FPS and the cube as well. Let's go up here and use public game object cube, and add a reference to the normal FPS using public game object normal FPS. Let's save our script. Make sure this one starts with a lowercase. Let's select our FPS robot and add a reference to the normal FPS, which is this one. I'm gonna drag it in here, and the cube, make sure to drag it as well. And finally the writing message, which is our text. So let's hit play again. So let's go to our robot, and if I hit the F key, I'm inside it. Also I can move, and we have the text, it's press E to exit. If I hit the E key, as you can see, I'm outside of the robot, but we need to make sure that the cube has the same FPS position. And to do that, let's go back to our script, and up here, let's go ahead and change the position using cube dot transform dot position equals the normal FPS position, and that's going to fix the problem. Let's save our script, and there you go, we've created a simple writing system in Unity. So if you have any question or comment, make sure to write it under the comment section down below. Also make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I appreciate that, and hit that bell icon so that you don't miss my next videos, and I will see you in the next one.